you're certainly right. I mean, as we discussed, I mean, there are drugs which are working against this virus, which you wouldn't ordinarily expect to work, with the hydroxychloroquine and the ivermectin. And we know too that it's acting more like a parasite when it comes to, it acts more like a malaria organism when it infects red cells and kicks the iron off the hemoglobin. That causes the hypoxia, and that free iron gets dumped into the lungs, and the lungs appear to be not reacting like a normal virus would, which is why the ventilation is not proving to be a particularly successful strategy. So you're certainly right that there's something very peculiar about this way this virus acts and how it's treated. So certainly the good news about our immune system is that there are some fundamental 4.5 billion years of evolution strategies to keep our immune system strong. And a lot of that system doesn't matter who's outside your house trying to break into it. It's still an immune system which is going to guard you against all those threats. So it then becomes very easy. People will go with those fundamentals, but also add in some sort of antifungal as well to their regime. Certainly if they're trying anti-malarials, anti-parasitic medications, certainly would seem reasonable that somebody tried some antifungal medication, but maybe that's something that people can easily do at home because there are a lot of very natural antifungals that people get.
Again, it's just out there for speculation, but this is not behaving like a virus or we'd have had it tied up by now.
Yep.
And it's incubation period, it's symptoms, it's everything about it. And then I learned mycoviruses impregnate fungal organisms with their RNA or DNA. It's all making sense.
Well, the good news is that the stuff that we've been talking about ordinarily for our immune system, that you, me, Roby talk about all the time, the vitamin A, the vitamin D, UV light, iodine, selenium, zinc, all antifungal as well. And in fact, there's one of the things that came about in Gandhi's autobiography I was fascinated with that every time they faced a plague, when Gandhi was in South Africa, and they had bubonic plague and black plague and pneumonic plague, and the South African authorities would come down and try and shut down and penalize the Indian colonies because of their hygiene standards. And Gandhi would go around and say, look, all we have to do to stop the persecution from the government is we just have to clean up our own backyard and have better hygiene conditions. And he got a lot of resistance and a lot of hatred and death threats from the Indian community saying, don't tell us how we should be living our lives, and don't tell us what toilet facilities, how clean we should keep it. But eventually they came around, and that's when a lot of the progress was made. And I think that's one of the things that take-home message from this is there's a lot of things that you and I can do for our immune system. The A's, the D's, the seleniums, the zincs, the iodines. What's your, and if people said, okay, well, look, I get this. I know we're still investigating what this organism is and the DNA and how it gets involved in our body. But what's Doug Kaufmann's favorite natural antifungal at the moment? If people said, okay, well, I'd like to add in a natural antifungal, which is olive leaf extract, or we're using black seed oil. What's Doug's favorite at the moment?
I'll always be a black seed oil fan. I've always liked caprylic acid. I just went on a 2-day fast the other day. And when I came off, I ate carrots. There's something in carrot. I know they're high in sugar, right, the glycemic, but falcarinol is a component, a phytonutrient in carrot that has powerful antifungal. I ate 5 pounds of carrots in a couple of days, a couple stalks, big things of celery. I ate grapefruit organic, and I ate half of a huge purple cabbage. And food is becoming my favorite antifungal, which is kind of interesting. I will always be a proponent of cholecalciferol, vitamin D3, vitamin A, fat-soluble nutrients. You grow something there that is amazing, and it only grows where you are and in New Zealand, and I think more so in New Zealand. It's called Horapido pepper. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Horapido pepper. It doesn't have tubules that can water it, so it lives down on the ocean, so the waves come up over it and water it, and it's a very pungent, very hot pepper. It's analogous to our U.S. capsaicin, from chili peppers. So this Horapido has had several papers written on it of its antifungal properties. So those watching this, if you're really looking for something natural, and be careful with it. I mean, Dr. Emerson will tell you, you got to be careful even with natural things, because you can throw yourself into a healing crisis, Herxheimer, and do harm. So go tiny. But Horopito, Horopito pepper, is one of my favorites currently. But food becomes an excellent antifungal also.
Well, all those foods you mentioned are foods which are traditionally very high in carotenoids, which obviously, as we know, get converted to vitamin A, which protects our lungs from disease. So that I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think food is critical, and those high carotenoid foods at the moment are really coming into their own. And one of the other things that came out from Gandhi was that he started to experiment a lot with health. And one of the things he experimented with was healing clays, and he was a big proponent of earth treatments. Now, of course, earth we know is a big, and clays are a big absorbent of mycotoxins. Where's Doug at the moment on the use of mycotoxin? Not particularly with this viral pandemic, but just in general health. Where are you with mycotoxin binders, charcoals, clays? What's Doug's feeling on those at the moment?
Redmond clay, psyllium. Psyllium is what we call a non-digestible fiber. And what that means is what goes in is going to come out. It's not like a green apple, right? So it does two things. Psyllium not only binds these fungal poisons in the intestines, and folks, we're getting into it when we're eating corn, when we're eating peanuts, when we're eating wheat, and certain other foods, grains in general, impregnate these grains. Clays are of tremendous value in absorbing these mycotoxins from our body. There's clay you can put in your bathtub. Certain of these dermatophytes, these skin fungi, need to be absorbed also. Some of them are pathogenic. But then there's internal clays, and this is where I love you and Roby. The work you're doing right now. Roby is for those of you who don't know, Roby's a physician out here who I would give a nickel to be a fly in a room when Greg Emerson and Roby Mitchell are talking. It's so deep, and I love going deep with people and listening. It's so deep to put these two in a room together and let them talk. Absorbing mycotoxins, you must starve them. They eat. They got to have carbohydrates. You must kill them or neutralize them if it's bad enough. If you have what we call a systemic fungal problem, it's in the adrenals, it's in the kidneys, it's in the liver, it's in the brain, you must kill them. And that's where prescriptive antifungals are. But more and more, I lean toward Ayurvedic, neem, natural antifungals. And then you must absorb those in your body. Psyllium not only binds while you sleep, it not only binds mycotoxins in the gut, but it's the reason when you get up in the morning and say, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. It enhances peristalsis, so it gets the bowel working. I'm very, very bullish on that. The approach to ridding your body of fungus, as you know, Greg, isn't take this antibiotic. Okay, I feel better in 3 days. Good, my sweating stopped, my fever is broken. It's much deeper than that, much deeper. And had I not had this in the war in Vietnam, I thank God every day I wouldn't have had any information on what these fungi are all about. So thanks to you and a whole bunch of doctors, your friends and my friends, we've really gone much further than others have.
And I'll tell you something else really interesting, which you'll know about, but just to mention it is, I did a podcast the other day with some old friends on women's health, and they said, Greg, if there was 2 supplements that people would take, what do you think are most important for women? And I said, well, the good news is the 2 that I think the most important are both free, and one is vitamin D and the other one is melatonin. And I can't get enough information on melatonin at the moment. I think it's just this incredibly, incredibly powerful hormone, which is under-recognized currently in its importance. And the interesting thing is that we know it's also critical for pancreatic function. We also know that it helps reduce the cytokine storm that you get from this virus. But I just saw this the other day, and I hadn't researched it, but I've gone back and had a look. The melatonin also is incredibly healing and it prevents the damage from mycotoxins. So here's another link between all of these things and some sort of fungal thing, that not only is melatonin critical for your pancreatic function, which has a lot to do with fungus, not only is it critical for reducing the cytokine storm, it's also incredibly anti-mycotoxic in that it reduces the damage to cells from mycotoxins. So I think melatonin is just such an extraordinary molecule. Have you guys on the TV show I haven't watched for a while been talking about melatonin very much? Does that come up in the fungal conversations?
And I was just going to say, Greg, let me drop back 30 years in my career. Melatonin, serotonin. It's kind of a, precursor to serotonin, much like glutathione has N-acetylcysteine precursor it, right? So melatonin, we used to tell people 30, 40 years ago in clinical nutrition, well, I travel a lot and I can't sleep on the airplane, so I've got, we'll take a little bit of melatonin. Here we told them it would assist the brain in calming and you'd be able to go to sleep. The more I read on melatonin, man, we underrated that stuff 30, 40 years ago.
I've got one more question for you before we end, and that was, a lot of things have disappeared off the news since this viral pandemic. And before the viral pandemic came along, the US in particular was having a problem with a more evolved candida species called Candida auris. It's kind of disappeared from the news at the moment, as has just about everything disappeared from the news. Tell us a little bit about Candida auris and what problems that was causing.
And thank you for even bringing that up. I haven't heard that word for a long, long time. Candida auris, there are many strains of Candida. They say there's over 100, Tropicalis, albicans, etc. One of them that came up, and by the way, it's called auris because a Japanese lady some 12 years ago, and it's very common for fungus to grow in the ears, right? Dark, moist places in your body. And this woman had a candida, what they thought was a candida infection, give it some diflucan or topically hit it with some nice statin or some miconazole or something. Didn't go away. As a matter of fact, it got worse. And the woman died of this, and they began studying this. This is a huge problem. It is a drug-resistant species of candida. Now, candida is a single-celled fungus. So candida is a fungus, only it has one cell. And thus far, it has resisted every treatment that anyone has ever found for it. But let me give you good news. I sent some of my friends, Horopedo, off to one of the major medical schools out here, paid them money to have it tested for a panel, Aspergillus, Candida, etc. And I asked them if they had the antigen, auris. And he said, well, we can get it. And I said, would you test Horopedo against, he said, well, if you want to spend the money, that's fine, but nothing kills. Guess what came back? Moderate killing. Auris. Right. To Horopedo. We don't have a drug. There's no synthetic drug that will kill this. And yet a plant that grows at the ocean is fungistatic. It stops this from growing. Candida auris is a bugger. It just went away. Greg is right. When all of this craziness around COVID started, it just went away, but it hasn't gone away. They don't know what to do about it.
Right. It's interesting. The ocean is phenomenal. I mean, I was up in North Queensland recently doing a podcast with a man from the Torres Strait Islands who collects wild coconuts and then sustainably, and then uses traditional indigenous ways of making the coconut oil. But it just blows my mind that there is this tree, which is where you mentioned caprylic acid, obviously, and it's one of the things that you can get from coconuts, which is very antifungal. It doesn't need water to grow, and it converts ocean water, sucks it up through its system, and then produces coconut water. I mean, what an incredible plant. Blows my mind, coconuts. What's the word for when people convert, something into gold? What was those people?
I know what you're talking about. Greg, this is fascinating because did you know years ago I read a book and I know what you're talking about. I read a book that said
Alchemist. Yeah. Well, they convert something into gold. I can't remember what it is.
Exactly.
But how a coconut is a great alchemist. It converts ocean water into coconut water. What?
And it's the only food, this book said, and I checked this, that you could sustain your life on forever. And I said, now, the meat, the oil, caprylic, lauric acid, etc., the milk. If you think about it, boy, you'd put yourself into ketosis pretty quickly. But what a way! Can you imagine just eating coconuts for 2 weeks?
What I'm also fascinated by is how a lot of these things that you and I are talking are things that are health practices that we have done as a species for thousands of years in traditional health, which we've then forgotten about it. And you remember when you and I did that Facebook Live when I came over I'd been in California on that wilderness medicine trip, and I'd been on fishing, and I had to stay in that moldy tent for a while. And yes. And I had to make that decision. Did I stay in the moldy tent, or did I go outside and sleep with the black bears that were roaming around?
Yep.
And so I decided to stay in the tent, but I got a mold infection in my ears, and that's when I knew. In fact, I was so stupid, I didn't even realize the tent was moldy. The first thing that made me think about it was my ears started to itch, and I thought, oh, I've had that before when I was sick with mold. So I checked the tent and it was moldy. But that took a long time to get rid of. And the only thing that really got rid of it was putting drops of black seed oil in my ears. And that eventually cleared it up. And then when you go and read about traditional health practices, that a lot of those traditions, and it doesn't matter if I was talking to Casey up in North Queensland with the coconuts, or he talked about putting coconut oil in the ears. And if you look at Ayurvedic practice, or I read Gandhi's book, they all talk about putting, drops of black seed or black sesame seed oil in the ears. And these are things that we have done as traditional populations, which we have forgotten about because we decided that drugs were the answer to everything. But I think the whole world is realizing now and seeing now that we have to go back to understanding and obeying some traditional health practices about getting our vitamin A and our vitamin D and utilizing these foods that you talked about, coconut, purple cabbage, horopedo, black seed oil, all of which not only are antifungal, but they're also very, very good for a multitude of things. And I think we have moved away from some of these traditional foods and this traditional knowledge. And in fact, it was interesting when I went up to interview Casey about the coconuts, I said, okay, let's say we had a chat and then we decided to do the podcast. And I said to Casey, are you ready to go? And his daughter was there. And she said, hang on, not so fast. I want to interview you first. And I said, fine. I said, what do you want to talk about? She said, well, I want to make sure you're up here for the right reasons. I want to make sure that you're up here to honor my father and his traditional knowledge and portray it in the right way. And I said, that is exactly why I'm here, because my mission is to show how modern science is now validating a lot of our traditional health practices and traditional diet, which we have forgotten about. So his daughter and I had a long chat, and we turned out that she was really pleased with my motivation for being there to do the interview with Casey. So it really is interesting how these things, these pandemics that we're getting now, are a reminder that we cannot forget about our traditional health practices. And some of those foods that you mentioned, as I said, coconut, purple cabbage, high in carotenoids, coconut full of natural anti-fungals, horopedo, which grows down near the ocean, black seed oil, a cure for everything except for death, according to the Prophet Muhammad. And now coming back into maybe this emergency we're having now is a reminder for us as a population, just like Gandhi said, look, this bubonic plague is a reminder that we have to have better hygiene and better sanitary systems. And maybe this is the worldwide wake up that we can't go, okay, let's ignore all our traditional health practices and we'll just take an antibiotic when we get sick. Maybe this is exactly what we needed to realize that the direction we have been going is not entirely the right one, and we have to incorporate some of our traditional health practices as well.
And yet, Greg, what did the father of medicine say a couple of thousand years ago? Let food be your medicine. I turned 70 on you.
I turned 70 on you?
You
did not.
No, I did. And it's funny, my wife said, I have more vim and vigor than I did when I was 35. I work out regularly. I have no doctor. I'm not on any drugs. I wake up in the morning like many people at my age and go, oh, my hip. And then I remember grandkid's birthday cake last night, cause and effect, right? And I don't touch alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't, eat grains. I feel better at 70 than really I did at 30. Back when I was drinking with the guys and, eating tacos and so forth.
I just want to say, for a 70-year-old man, you have amazing skin. What do you think that's been? And in fact, I had to get my driver's license yesterday because I had to, it had expired, and I went in and they did a vision test, and I've still got perfect vision. These are my blue light blocking glasses, which I really want Doug Kaufmann
I remember those
to put on when it gets dark afterwards to make sure his melatonin.
Mercola wants me to wear those too.
Right, yeah. You only have to wear them after it gets dark because you've got to safeguard your melatonin, and these are making sure my melatonin. But I had perfect vision, and Doug Kaufmann at the age of 70 has got perfect skin. What do you put that down to?
Vitamin D. I am, it's funny. I would have been a nudist if I could have. That whole Garden of Eden thing, when he ate the animals, and all of a sudden they're naked and they're embarrassed. I thought, darn. Living out in the sun without a shirt on. So 25 minutes a day, I go out on my maxi climber and my weights and my push-ups and so forth. And I'm out in the sun. I expose myself to sun. I don't put creams on or anything. And look at you, sun, you wouldn't hold a match till it burns your finger. Don't stay out in the sun till it causes burning on your body. But I encourage people, if they have a little loft in their home, that exposes them to sunlight, to take your shirt off and let sun hit you as often as possible, and then take vitamin D supplementally. I feel so good. I think I mentioned...
You think of the vitamin D as being good for your skin? I suspect too that with what you've told me about that your diet, that I know you do anyway, but the carotenoids are very high in your diet, which then get converted to vitamin A. And vitamin A not only good for our lungs, and there was a study out yesterday showing that it basically protects the gut wall from infection as well. But it's I think one of the reasons my eyesight is still so good, and it's amazing. It's amazing for your eyes, amazing for your skin, and amazing for your immune system. So I suspect that your high carotenoid diet's a big part.
Here they are. I have reader glasses, and I don't even need them. I use them because on my Facebook Live and YouTube, I have to answer quick questions. They're handed to me, and I got to read it quickly. But I try and not train my eyes, to not wear glasses. I feel good. I feel good at my age. God only knows how long I'm going to live, but if I'm feeling this good 10 or 15 years from now, man, I'm going for it. I'm going to be like you. I'm going to be the crazy guy that goes from hot plunge to the ice and, feel great.
Have you done any cold water stuff yet?
Well, okay. Every March and April, spring comes around here in Texas, and we have cold winters. We get down in the 30s and 40s. And couple of years ago, I started doing my workout, and Greg, I'm dripping. I mean, it's just, and we don't have pool heaters in California. We did, but here the sun heats it during summer. And I started dropping into the pool, just dripping wet, got a bunch of push-ups done, pull-ups, and then I drop into the pool, and I'm telling you, your name rings in my head every time I do. It just takes my breath away. But man, do you feel good afterwards.
Yeah, I went from my sauna. It's the first time I ever did it. I pumped my sauna up, and then I've got a cold freezer out on my back porch now. I normally go and do it in a waterfall, but I went straight from the sauna to the freezer. Ooh, first time I've done that, and it was you wouldn't want to do that unsupervised. There was absolutely a release of DMT from my pineal gland. It was almost a psychedelic experience. I had to get out because I thought I don't really want to be sitting in here having a psychedelic DMT experience on my back porch, which is way up off the ground in a freezing cold pool. But it does extraordinary things to the body. I think we just started.
And you think about vasodilatation, then vasoconstriction, then vasodilatation.
I mean, it's the
Greg,
biggest muscle in the body. That's what I say to people. It's the biggest muscle in the body, endothelium, and we don't exercise it. And then we wonder why our arteries get stiff and our blood pressure goes up. And it's like, what other muscle in the body do you not exercise? You have to exercise this muscle to keep those blood vessels supple. And how do you do it? With temperature change, hot and cold, vasodilation, vasoconstriction. Right, Doug, how does my audience keep up with Doug Kaufmann? We've got the Know the Cause TV show, which is online. How else can they keep up with your work?
Knowthecause.com, K-N-O-W, knowthecause.com. I've had that for 30 years. And just jump on, join us, laugh, have fun. By the way, Tuesday and Thursday, during the afternoons here, it's on our website. I do this live like we're doing, only I do it live. And Greg, going live is awesome. The questions you
That's on Facebook, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, Facebook. The laughs you'll have, the questions you get. It's, you know, my 50, it was 50 years ago. I left for Vietnam in 1970, August of 1970, 50 years ago now. I was getting all of my vaccinations, getting ready to go to Vietnam. It's been a great, great career.
All right, so there you go, knowthecause.com. And what is it on Facebook? Where is it? Know the Cause on Facebook as well?
Same, YouTube. We have our own channel. Everything's Know the Cause, K-N-O-W, the cause.
Okay, great. Well, everybody, thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you've liked what you've heard, give us a good review on the podcast platform and on the YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and like the videos. Thanks you so much, Doug, for your time. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch up with you next time.